Welcome back to the 49 Willys pickup project. Today we're going to try to save these side steps. Now these side steps were only on the trucks, I believe from 47 to 49, and they go right between the cab and the front of the box fenders. These are in pretty tough shape, but we're going to see what we can do. While these fenders are completely intact, they are not perfect. You can see we've got some rust holes kind of popping up all through here. And I've already stripped one of these to get a better idea. This one's actually worse. Lots and lots of rust through. That means not only is it a hole there, it means that metal is really thin all throughout here. And even back on this corner, it's pretty tough. So are these worth saving? I say yes, for a couple of reasons. Number one, a brand new set of these things, a reproduction set, are going to run about 250 bucks, and I'm just not going to spend that kind of money. If it boils right down to it, I would go without steps because they lost the steps a year after mine was built anyway. But I think we can do something with these and make them look decent. The first thing I did with these steps was to cut out this part of this brace that was bad. That's pretty much what it looked like. It was pretty far gone. So anyway, I just cut those out. And then I took some time, and every one of the bolts that held these down on both of them was broken off. So I got out my welder, welded a nut on there. It took me a couple tries, but I got these good to go. So they're reusable. So back to the job. I think for the most part, up around this edge looks fairly decent. I think I can cut out up to here anyway and put some patches in and make it look fairly good. I'm not sure what I'm going to do right here. I mean, I could just back it with something and fill that with a little bit of epoxy. Ultimately, what I'd like to do, I'm going to bed line the box, and I'm thinking maybe just to run a line around here and put some bed liner right on this as well to fill this stuff. You can see down in here, even where it's not rusted through, it's pitted really badly. So let's make some patches and see how we can do this. So here's what I think I'm going to do for this. I'm going to make some patches. First thing I want to deal with is this part. It looks like the surface of the moon with these craters here. So I'm thinking I'm going to start here, come up into here, and maybe go straight up to there. So I'm going to follow this line. This lip down here is actually good. So maybe I'll just cut it right along this edge. I'm going to wrap this over a little bit because I've got some holes in here. But I should be able to bend that. It's just a 90-degree bend. And the next thing I'll do is maybe make this piece here. I think I'm going to have to come up onto this seam. I'll bring that right along there. What else here? I think the next patch is going to look like this. Whoops, we got to, yeah, this will be fine right here. And then finally, another patch in here. Kind of like that. So maybe 4 patches. It still leaves me this mess in here. You know, I could cut a couple of sections out here and see if I can patch these up. Maybe I'll come all the way up to there. Recreating this is going to be a little tricky. Probably do the same thing here. There's a hole there too. Some of these maybe I can just dab them and fill these little pinholes. We'll see how far it goes. We're going to need material, so let's go shopping. I've got a bunch of stuff that I saved back around the corner here. Here we go. So I think I might just grab at least one of these fenders. It's got the right thickness of metal, and it's also got some curves in it if I need those kind of shapes. And none of these fenders are worth saving anyway, so I think I'm just going to grab one of these for starters. All right, out with the old, in with the new. There we go. This patch will start right there. All right, here's my next patch. Probably cut this a little bigger than I would have to, but I had so many other pieces there, I thought I'd just do it in one. So my whole approach to this is to try to retain as much of the shape as I can. There's a lot to replace, but if I cut it all out, I'm going to probably lose some of these reference points. So I'm kind of working my way in from the outside in sections. And the next piece I'm concerned about is going to involve both of these braces. These have to be right in the same spot so it mounts properly. That means this patch and this patch are probably going to take those mounts with them, so I need to get a reference on that. But for now, let's get this piece tacked in. Got our first two patches in, here and here. And just as a reminder, that's what we took out. There we go, we got that. So next I want to move on to probably this patch right here. And this patch has my mounting bracket spot welded in. So I think what I'll do is maybe make a template, something that I can actually maybe take a piece of angle iron or something and drill it out and mount it here. And then that'll give me at least the location so that when I go to put this back on, it's going to land in the right spot. Here's my plan for how to keep these things located where they belong. I took an angle iron and drilled it out to fit. These are exactly 5.5 inches apart. So I'm going to do is hard attach this. Okay, this keeps these things located properly. Now what I'm going to do is I'll do one of these at a time. So I'll start with this one. I'm going to cut this one out, but I'm going to leave everything here attached. Then when I put my new patch in, this won't have moved, but everything underneath it will. When that's all done, make sure this stays bolted down, and then we'll do this patch, we'll do the same thing. So the first thing I have to do is find the spot welds. There are spot welds that attach this. I just need to find those spot welds and drill them out. All right, this is the piece I cut out. Here's my new piece. I was able to bend it up and get, I think, close enough. I might have to shave just a little more off here to fit this in. And then I realized I had a little extra there, but I can fill that. That shouldn't be that bad. Okay, we got this patch welded in, and I globbed in. I used a little bit of coat hanger, just globbed in some weld up on that missing corner. That'll grind off. And then you can see these 4 spots here. What I've done is plug welded that bracket back on there. So now that'll hold the bracket when we work on this side. All right, I got my last Frankenstein patch panel in. Just a lot of welding to do here, but I think I got most of the big stuff done. Now I just have to think about how I'm going to deal with all of these holes in here. I think it's going to be probably a combination of some small patches and maybe just tapping it with the welder to see if I can build up a little weld on these without blowing through. All right, here's the underside. I've got everything welded up that I need to weld up. There are still some pinholes in here, but I'm not going to worry about that. I'll explain that in a second. But I welded a lot of this from the back side just so that I would have less grinding to do on the other side. And then I've treated this with a rust converter. And you can kind of see where we came from and where we're going next with this. So patch, 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 and I just zapped in a whole bunch of weld here. It's not pretty, but I'm not real worried about that because, as I mentioned earlier, when I get ready, what I'm going to do is paint the underside with undercoating. And then I'll prime this side for now and then just set it aside. And when I come back to finishing up my work on the box, I'm going to use a bed liner. And then what I'll do is maybe mask this corner off around here and just shoot the top of this with bed liner. And that will kind of take care of all the last few pinholes. And I don't need to really do much to finish this out further because I think that that bed liner will hide that stuff. But I will have a good solid step that's not all rusty. Taking a little different approach for the second one. On that first one, my approach was to just cut out big chunks here and replace it. So I'm kind of done with this one now. Maybe I'll shoot a little bit of primer on that, but that I can set aside. This one I stripped it off and it actually wasn't quite as bad. Still had a lot of pinholes. But I'm going to try a little different approach on this one since I don't have quite as extensive damage. What I'm doing is just using epoxy. So what I've done is, I'll flip it over here, is I just filled in all the holes with some epoxy here. And then kind of went on the other side once I got that done and added it here. Now I'll sand these off. And we'll just see how it holds up. Okay, I think I'm done for now. I've got undercoating on the back of both these. This is the one that I did the patchwork on. You can see my patches in there. This is the epoxied one. And so you'll see globs of epoxy on the back end. I didn't really do much to finish those out since they won't be visible. And I've got some primer on the surface of both of these. And they look pretty good from a distance. I can still see lines in here, and I've still got kind of a sharp edge there I need to do a little sanding on. But for the most part, I think these things will take bed liner and hide the rest of the problems. On the one that I just used epoxy, you can see pretty much the spots where I dabbed the epoxy. So I might put a little body filler on there just to smooth some of that out. But I think for the most part, it looks okay. All right, I think I've taken this as far as I need to go. So I'm going to set these aside now and bring them back out when it gets closer to paint time. If you'd like to see how I got to this point, this is all part of a much larger project to restore a 49 Willys pickup. If you want to see some of the earlier videos, really from the time I brought it home up to this point, there's a playlist down in the comments and you can go back and look at any one of those videos. If you'd like to follow along and see how we go forward on this, go ahead and hit the subscribe button and you'll be notified as I put out new videos. Lastly, I'd like to thank you for joining me and I hope to see you next time.